What's up, Taiwan? I'm Tiffany Wong with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan's legislature has passed a bill that could potentially extend the life of the country's last nuclear power plant, a move that threatens the ruling party's plan to become a nuclear-free country. Leslie Liao is at the legislature with more. Leslie, what exactly does this bill do?
Well, Tiffany, the bill allows for 20-year license extensions on decommissioned nuclear power plants, essentially extending the maximum service life of nuclear reactors in Taiwan from 40 years to 60 years. Taiwan has been slowly phasing out nuclear power, and there's only one plant left in the entire country that's still operational. But that plant is scheduled to be decommissioned on Saturday. Nuclear power has long been a contentious issue between the ruling Democratic Progressive Party and the opposition Kuomintang. The DPP argues that nuclear power is dangerous, most often pointing to the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster in neighboring Japan as an example. Like Japan, Taiwan sits on the Pacific Ring of Fire, making it prone to earthquakes, which nuclear power opponents say increases the likelihood of meltdown. But the KMT and the Taiwan People's Party used their combined majority in the legislature to push the bill through, saying Taiwan's energy strategy needs nuclear.
So Leslie, you say the opposition pushed for these changes. Why do they want to keep nuclear energy?
Well, like I said, Tiffany, the KMT argues that nuclear is necessary for Taiwan's energy strategy. The country's energy consumption operates close to capacity, especially during the hot summer months. And with Taiwan's energy-intensive industries like semiconductor manufacturing, demand is only expected to grow. Also, Taiwan imports close to 99% of its energy from overseas. Most of that is fossil fuels like natural gas. And Taiwan is looking to phase out those energy sources in favor of greener alternatives like wind or solar. Now, that's to say that the wind or solar is going to have a hard time making up that energy mix, and supporters of nuclear power say that Taiwan's going to have a hard time maintaining its energy supply if it's not going to have nuclear.
Thank you, Leslie. That was Leslie Liao reporting from the legislature in Taipei. Donald Trump will meet Syria's interim leader before he wraps up a visit to Saudi Arabia. The news comes just hours after the U.S. president announced that Washington will lift years-long sanctions on Damascus. Cheers in Damascus as people celebrate what they hope marks the start of a new era. On Tuesday, U.S. President Donald Trump announced plans to lift sanctions on Syria after a meeting with Saudi Arabia's crown prince. These sanctions, targeting the government of former Syrian leader Bashar al-Assad, had isolated the country for over a decade.
I thank Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, King Salman, and all the Saudi people for this moment of chivalry. Their support has been with us from the day we began the revolution until now. A million thanks.
Trump said the decision was made due to a recent change of leadership in the civil war-torn country. In December 2024, current Syrian President Ahmed al-Sharaa led an offensive that overthrew the Assad regime.
There is a new government that will hopefully succeed in stabilizing the country and keeping peace. That's what we want to see in Syria. I will be ordering the cessation of sanctions against Syria in order to give them a chance at greatness.
The decision marks a major shift in U.S. Middle East policy and signals a move towards normalizing relations with Syria's new government, a step welcomed by the United Nations.
It was important for us to see relief on sanctions on Syria, to help the reconstruction of Syria, to help the Syrian people recover from more than a decade of conflict, a decade of underinvestment.
It comes during Trump's first state visit of his second term, a tour of Gulf states to discuss investment and foreign policy, where other major deals are being made. including a $142 billion arms deal between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia, the largest defense sales agreement in history, according to the White House. It includes plans for state-of-the-art weapons and services for Air Force advancement and air and missile defense. Trump is also expected to meet Syria's new president in Saudi Arabia on Wednesday. Still, some observers are urging caution.
You don't want to go whole hog in and invest in any particular regime, because even though they've stayed for 6 months, there's no guarantee that they're going to continue beyond 6 months. There's so much sort of at stake and so much up in the air that things can change in really unpredictable ways.
Trump will head to Qatar and the UAE next, where leaders are expected to discuss tech investment, manufacturing, and military cooperation, further shifting dynamics in the Middle East. Patrick Chen and Tiffany Wong for TaiwanPlus. Among the deals made between the U.S. and Saudi Arabia are hundreds of billions of dollars in new investments in the tech and AI sectors. That includes an agreement for Saudi Arabia to buy hundreds of thousands of AI chips from Nvidia. Nvidia's CEO Jensen Huang was among a number of tech bosses in Saudi Arabia as part of Trump's entourage. But next week, he'll be in Taiwan, and rumors are swirling he will make a big announcement. Chris Gorin is at Nvidia's Taipei office for us with the details. So, Chris, what is Huang expected to say?
Well, as you mentioned, Tiffany, I'm here at what is currently Nvidia's Taipei office, but it may not stay that way for long. Local media is reporting that CEO Jensen Huang may announce a new expanded office location next week at Computex Taipei, one of the world's largest tech trade shows. And he comes to Taiwan bringing good news, lots of new business. He's coming straight from the Middle East where huge new tech deals were announced. We're talking about tens, maybe hundreds of billions of dollars in new AI infrastructure investment in Saudi Arabia and potentially other countries as well. Now, some of the biggest names in tech, including Huang, joined President Trump on his trip to Riyadh and met with the Saudi Crown Prince. So what's in these deals? Well, Nvidia now says they're going to sell hundreds of thousands of their highest-end chips to Saudi Arabia. And that's not even including the 1.5 million chips reportedly that they will sell to the United Arab Emirates, which would make it one of the largest pools of AI compute in the world. U.S. chip designer AMD, a $10 billion US dollar deal for AI infrastructure for Saudi Arabian company Huang. And there were also smaller deals with OpenAI, Oracle, Google, the list goes on. Now, all of these moves reflect a broader strategy among regional countries in the Gulf to transition from being the world's reservoir of oil to its reservoir of computing power.
So lots of changes going on. What does it all mean for Taiwan?
Well, that's the thing, Tiffany. Even though there didn't appear to be any representatives from Taiwanese companies in Riyadh, Taiwan may be the big winner in these deals. And that's because most of the equipment at the center of these deals is made in Taiwan. Nvidia's GPUs, the AI accelerators from AMD, the CPUs in Qualcomm servers, all of those are made by Taiwanese chip giant TSMC. And it goes further than that. Not only does Taiwan make about 90% of the world's most advanced chips, but it also makes about 90% of the servers that those chips then go in. So Taiwanese companies like Foxconn, like Wistron, like Quanta, they're probably going to be assembling these servers that will then be shipped to Riyadh and Abu Dhabi. So that's why companies like Nvidia will likely need to expand their operations in Taiwan, starting with new office space.
Thanks, Chris. We'll have to see what's announced at Computex next week. That was Chris Gorin reporting live in Taipei. Former Taiwan President Tsai is at the Copenhagen Democracy Summit, stressing the need for democracy in the face of growing global challenges.
One thing remains clear. That is, democracy and resilience are the bedrock of our future. Taiwan has shown that it is possible to stand firm against authoritarian pressure without losing our openness, our humanity, our democracy.
Tsai shared Taiwan's experience facing pressure from authoritarianism and urged democracies to come up with new strategies to protect their security and economic stability. This was her first time attending the summit in person after taking part virtually for several years. China's military activity around Taiwan is continuing to ramp up as Taiwan holds its own drills in the country's south. The Defense Ministry says it spotted 35 Chinese military aircraft and 8 naval vessels operating around Taiwan in the 24 hours up to Wednesday morning. 25 of those aircraft entered Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. This area is not Taiwan's airspace, but acts as a buffer zone for defensive purposes. The military says it also spotted 2 official ships operating near Taiwan. Pharmacists are concerned that a new Trump administration order to cut drug costs in the U.S. could affect Taiwan. There are worries that drug makers may raise prices in smaller markets like Taiwan or even pull out entirely. John Van Trieste reports.
U.S. President Donald Trump is ordering drug makers to cut their prices. A new executive order says companies must sell in the U.S. at the same prices they offer in other countries. Right now, Americans pay nearly 3 times more for prescription drugs than people in other developed nations. In Taiwan, where drugs are relatively cheap, there are jitters about how drug makers could react, because the U.S. market accounts for 1/3 of world spending on medicine, too big to lose. To keep U.S. prices high, companies could raise prices elsewhere. And in a worst-case scenario, they could stop selling to less profitable markets like Taiwan altogether. Pharmacists say cancer patients are among those who stand to lose the most.
是不是药品要停产，还是数量要减少？延长药都可能，专利的药都可能。尤其美国到台湾的不可以取代的有72种，大部分就是癌症的用药。
Worse yet, cutting-edge drugs could take much longer to reach Taiwan, maybe 3 to 5 years after other countries, as companies focus on profit in big markets like the U.S. first.
所以势必你的上市一定要比美国晚个几年嘛。 比如说重大疾病，它目前台湾里面还就是以目前的治疗，它没有很多的选项的哈。那像这种药品就会受到比较冲击，会比较大。
Whether Trump's order will be effective is uncertain, and the government says there's a system in place to make sure Taiwan has a stockpile of medication it needs.
我们的健保署都可以有一个机制，都可以反映到癌症的药，如果对病人有帮助的药，我想我们是绝对。 国家站在国家的立场，政府的立场，绝对要让它用在病人的身上。
But concerned pharmacists say without higher health insurance premiums, Taiwan could soon find it hard to get the high-end medications needed to keep people healthy. Wong and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The English translation of the Taiwanese novel Taiwan Travelogue has won a literary translation award from the Asia Society. Author Yang Shangzi is the first Taiwanese writer to win the Baifang Shell Book Prize. The English version was written by New York-based translator Lin King. It's set during Japan's occupation of Taiwan and explores the relationship between 2 women, a visiting Japanese writer and her local Taiwanese interpreter. Taiwan Travelogue was also the first Taiwanese novel to win the U.S. National Book Award for Translated Literature last year. The original Chinese version was published in 2020 and won the Golden Tripod Award, Taiwan's highest literary honor. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we head to London for this Punch and Judy puppet show. I'm Tiffany Wong. Take care and see you next time. I'm Tiffany Wong in Georgetown, Penang, and you're watching TaiwanPlus.
For more news from Taiwan and around the world, download our app or check out the TaiwanPlus website. Ready? Go. Ready. Just jump.
Okay, jump!